Hello and welcome to that Board Game Show podcast. This is Season 2, Episode 1. And in case you're just listening to this, we are doing video podcasts now. So if you want to watch, you can. I'm Sonja Wood and here is...
James Wood.
Hello James, that's my son. And we are starting a series called Collector's Corner. Now, we think that there's a lot of people out there that are going to identify with this Collector's Corner. We don't think we're alone in being board game collectors, which is what we're going to be talking about in this series. And so I need to start at the very beginning. So I've got a little story to tell. And we're going to get to this. If you're watching this, you're going to see all these lovely Lord of the Rings things, minis and games and
books
and
more books
and if
t-shirts.
Isn't it all shiny? Aren't these books all shiny here?
And mugs.
Yeah, because look, you've got a Lord of the Rings shirt. I don't have, but you do. That's because he's the great...
I'm the Tolkien nerd in the family.
Yes, correct. But the seed was sown a long time ago, which is what I'm going to talk to you about. And up here on our bookcase, you will see Lord of the Rings books. Those are all Jamie's books, because when birthdays come around, it's very easy. Because Jamie wants Lord of the Rings or Lego or board games. Of course, board games. I don't even need to say that one. That's number one, actually. But anyway, they're the books. There's the lineup of Lord of the Rings books. Now, I happen to know that other people have got bookcases of Lord of the Rings books, which I try and keep you away from.
I haven't quite gone completely off the deep end, although...
You'd like to?
I'm kind of dabbling in deeper water then.
And actually, you know what? When Jamie was a little boy, he's a very impressionable person, okay? But because I'm mother and because I had to be the maturity on his behalf when he was a little boy and because he was so impressionable and because he tended to take on the character of whatever it was he was watching, when Lord of the Rings came out in, what was the year?
2000 or 2001, the first movie. Well, the first Peter Jackson film was released. There had been a previous animated Lord of the Rings, in the 70s, I think. But
you weren't a man yet, you were just a boy.
The Lord of the Rings movies that everyone knows are the Peter Jackson ones, and that first one, I think, was 2000 or 2001.
And you were just a boy, a little boy. And I didn't want you to go watch Lord of the Rings. I had to be mature on his behalf because I was aware what could happen. He could, next week be a troll or a dwarf or... actually, he could probably want to be Gandalf.
Probably.
Yes, probably.
Or
and
Aragorn.
That would have been problematic because, Gandalf the wise.
Gandalf the wizard, more worryingly.
Yes. Anyway, what I want to tell you is just to kick this series off, which is going to be all about being collectors of board games. But because we're starting with Lord of the Rings, I wanted to tell a little story about this book that I'm holding in my hands. It's patched together because it's very old. And the story about this book, which is what I said is where I think the little seed dropped, it is the Lord of the Rings book, of course. And my oldest brother used to read it to me at night, okay? And I used to not want to go to my room after he had read it because of all the things that were a little bit scary for me, little girl. And so I would sleep on the floor next to his bed after he had read me some Lord of the Rings. And this is quite a story because I know it's a little bit of a sidetrack from actually being collectors of Lord of the Rings, but I must tell you the story. What happened was that there was a time when I was a child that some kidnappings were happening in the town that we lived. It was really, really terrible. Children were being kidnapped. And so my parents went off to bed one evening and they went into the rooms to check on the children, and Sonja was missing. They could not find me anywhere.
Oh, dear.
The boys were woken up. Sonja's missing. Where is she? It was terrible. And it was because Gregory, my eldest brother, had read me Lord of the Rings, and I had decided to hide under his bed.
Sleeping next to it wasn't sufficient, no.
No, that's where I was going to sleep. And I caused my family a lot of distress because they couldn't find me. They did, obviously, eventually, because the noise of the panic and everything else awoke me. And then I presented myself. Anyway, what I discovered...
Came downstairs to find out who was missing.
Yes. So what I wanted to share about this book, actually, of this book that Lord of the Rings that Gregory had read to me, was that I thought it was quite intense because I received it as a little girl. Okay. So when Lord of the Rings movie came out and you wanted to go and watch it, it was, no chance, no ways. I know how impressionable you are and you're not going to watch that movie. Sorry. But when you got to be older and you could make some more wise decisions on your own, you could watch Lord of the Rings as many times as you
Separate the
like.
lines between fantasy and reality a little bit better.
Hence, look here. What is that? That's the Lord of the Rings.
Extended edition Blu-ray box set.
There. And how many times have you watched it? A few.
At least 5, I want to say.
So he made up for not watching Lord of the Rings when he was a
Because I've
little
watched
boy.
it with all the commentaries. So I think there's 4 commentaries. And I've watched all the commentaries. And the film. So that's 5 times at least.
Sure.
So maybe 6.
But anyway, so you know what happened. Gregory read me this book. All right. Then the movie came out and I didn't want you to watch it because of that. And then you got older and now it was time for you to watch the Lord of the Rings movie because you could
And
be a
I
little
found
bit
this book on the
sensitive.
shelf.
And you found this book on the shelf, yes. And then I watched the movies and I thought, no, the movies have got a lot more in them than I ever remember the book having. And I thought the book was intense enough. And now the movies were very, very intense, especially Shelob's Lair. That was like too much for me. Okay. Anyway, I was thinking, I don't remember Shelob's Lair when my brother read this book to me. So that's what was going through my mind when we were watching the movies. And in between now, we got the board game and we started playing the board game and I thoroughly enjoyed it, getting immersed in the whole theme and going on adventures. And I just so enjoyed it because it's a campaign-y. No, would you call it campaign?
Yeah.
Campaign.
100% campaign.
Oh, 100% campaign. So,
Well, this particular one, which is Lord of the Rings Journeys in Middle-earth by Fantasy Flight Games, is a comprehensive campaign game.
and I just loved it. I so enjoyed the tile. You know, as the tiles come out and you land, it just grows and grows, and all the wonderful little minis, which Jamie painted, as well as the extras. Sometimes you need to put some terrain piece in, a table or a barrel.
Walls or barrels or fireplace.
So Jamie painted them all to look beautiful. It's all there on the table. And then we went on a road trip and we decided to listen to Andy Serkis's
Lord of the Rings audiobook.
And then I discovered that actually the movies had left things out, not put things in.
As is usually the case with films.
So here I was watching the movie thinking, oh, they've added a whole lot. And it works. Turns out that in the end I discover that my brother actually did a lot of editing when he was reading aloud The Lord of the Rings.
Making it palatable for his little sister.
Yes, and even so, I still hid under the bed. But anyway, so I went from an edited read aloud version of Lord of the Rings to the movies, to playing board games, to then listening to Andy Serkis read the audio version, the audiobook. And it was just brilliant, absolutely brilliant. And it was
Well worth a listen if you're even a borderline Lord of the Rings fan.
Yeah. Jamie, tell them what happened when we were on the road trip and we were listening to Lord of the Rings.
So we're going on this long, 18-hour, 20-hour road trip, which is one reason we chose to listen to the audiobook. Because we figured, perfect opportunity to get all the way through it, because book 1 was 21 hours.
Yeah.
And as we were driving along, and where were we? Sort of southern KwaZulu-Natal, South Africa.
Yeah, I think, around about there.
We're going along and we see a sign on the side of the road for Rivendell Guest House.
And then what did we hear?
And then while we're listening to the Fellowship arriving at Rivendell.
Oh, it was crazy.
And then a little bit later, we're in the audiobook going along and we hear we're getting close to the Misty Mountains and Khazad Dûm and all these places, and then we drive past Misty Mountain Guest Lodge, and so
And then I must
it was a bit
actually,
uncanny.
yeah, but I must actually confess at this point that we were taking turns driving, and I was driving at that point, and I had to stop and reconnect with reality because I suddenly was aware that I was so caught up in the.
Where are we?
Yeah, what's happening? What happened a few moments ago? I literally had to pull over and stop the car because I had become so immersed in the story that I realized I wasn't in touch. And that
The
is
real world.
And that is, I suppose, where you get your impressionableness from. I saw
Perhaps.
you picked up your mug, and it's got, isn't it your Lord of the Rings mug?
Yeah, I showed it earlier. Got my one ring inscription.
Yeah, and then your shirt. You know, we collectors. That's what this whole series is about. And I've actually, where's my mug? Here. You see this mug? Well, if I face it this way, well, people who are listening won't
If
see
you
it.
face it this
Let
way,
me
but
tell.
yes, the people listening will not see anything.
No, the people listening will just have to know I picked up a mug with an elephant.
There is a
print
mug
on
with an
it.
elephant on it.
Yeah.
For those listening.
And that's just to say, you know what? I started collecting elephants, figurines, not real life elephants, just because we live in South Africa, just in case you're wondering. In fact, the place where we live used to have elephants walking through.
Many hundreds
before
of
we
years
lived
ago.
here. Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
Several hundred years before we lived here.
Not several hundred.
Yeah.
Not that long. But anyway, yeah.
A long time ago.
A long time ago, before us. Anyway, I collected I got my first elephant when we were in Zimbabwe, which was then Rhodesia. And I then started collecting elephants. I bought it from a guy on the side of the road that had carved elephant. Anyway, now I got up to 100 elephants and thought, okay, now stop. That's enough elephants. So I stopped collecting elephants for a while, and then I discovered that I had very few elephants with their trunk up. So I decided I'm going to collect elephants.
Finally, an excuse to keep collecting elephants.
Yes, an excuse to keep collecting. Do you need an excuse to keep collecting?
No.
No, no.
I fully admit that I'm a Tolkien nerd and a collector, so
Oh, there you go.
no
Just accept
excuses required. It's just
Yeah.
a fact.
So we have how many Lord of the Ring board games boxes did we count? I think it was 9. Yes, it's 9. And Jamie,
That's probably counting expansion boxes.
It is,
So
yes.
we've got card game, Journeys of Middle Earth, Hobbit, other Hobbit.
Lord of the Rings,
Other Lord of the Rings game,
the board game,
Lord of the Rings dice game.
Yeah.
7. Not counting expansion boxes.
Okay. And so then, Jamie, I'm getting all these boxes together, and I'm thinking, whoa, look at this, armloads of Lord of the Rings boxes. And Jamie says, but there's one missing.
We still don't have the second expansion for Journeys of Middle Earth. So there's
Dear.
2 expansions total for it, which is unusual for Fantasy Flight to stop at 2.
Okay.
But they've only done 2 expansions for it because that was like they finished it off. It didn't actually have that massive of a popularity. You know, it wasn't a huge hit for them for some reason. I don't quite know why.
Oh, and I just think it's so beautiful.
I think it's
the
brilliant,
game,
yeah.
the production, the publishing, everything. I think it's on another level. And I mean, look at these minis. I know those who are listening will have to go look at these minis because it's just
Go
so
to
worth it.
That
You know
Board
what
Game
you
Show
must
YouTube
do?
channel, or if you're listening to this on Spotify, I think Spotify lets you do
Watch the
video
video.
podcasts as
Oh.
well.
Okay.
But you can definitely go to our YouTube channel to check out the video, and
That
then you can
Board Game
see
Show.
all the lovely minis.
Basically, this series that we're doing now is going to be all about being collectors of board games. And one of the reasons why we want to share it on a podcast is because we love being collectors. We don't feel bad about it. We don't think that it's something to feel bad about.
Yeah, we've come to terms with the fact that
We've
we
come to
are
terms.
board game collectors
Yes.
and not just board game players. Because whenever it comes to it, whenever we faced with the opportunity to trade a game, give a game away, sell a game, it just never sits right. We
don't want to.
We can never let go.
We like collecting games.
And I think a big part of that is because we like collecting.
We are collectors.
We put a lot of time and effort and research into every game we get. Mm-hmm. We don't just buy games on a whim. We don't just get a whole big job lot of games.
No.
just buy the latest hotness because it's hot and everyone's raving about it. And, ooh, this is an amazing game. No, we wait for the buzz to die down a bit.
Not only that,
and we watch the reviews.
We can
and we
see
do
if
our
it's a
homework,
game.
and we play it ourselves if we
Yeah.
can, before buying. So once a game enters our collection, it's gone through
Quite a
pretty
process.
extensive research process before it actually even gets there. So then to let it go after that is a bit painful.
Well, we don't want to.
Yeah.
And the other thing is, we don't, and you're saying when there's a big buzz about a new game, we can tell quite quickly if it's a game that we're going to be glad to have or not, because it's not a mechanic we particularly go for, or a theme, for example. But as soon as we see a game that's got theme, all the things we go, oh, yes, we like the look of that, then we start the research. But sometimes we just say, no, that's not for us. So that's true. By the time we've actually got the game, we've done all the research, and so now it is hard to part with it because we enjoy it. And in fact, we don't have any games in our collection that we don't want to be there. That's what we've discovered. When it comes to it and somebody sees a game on our collection, they go, oh, they quite like the look of that. Well, how about us trading them with this or that? We go,
no, thanks.
no.
Which is a bit strange because there's even games in the collection that are ideal for more players.
Instead of just
two, because primarily it's just the two of us playing games. So we have certain games in our collection that, while playable with two, are much better with 3, 4, 5 people, So it would make sense to trade that game away, sell it, give it to someone, because, somebody else is going to get a lot more play out of that game. But we like having that game in our collection. It's part of the collection for a reason. It's a game
because
that we really like, and we may only get a chance to play it once or twice a year, if that,
Yeah.
And yet
we still
we
want
don't
it to
want
be
to get
there.
rid of it.
Yeah.
We want to have it there. We want to have that option.
So we thought we'd do a podcast series on being board game collectors. And what we're going to do with it is we're going to share with you our collection because we can. So today is about this one.
Journeys in Middle-earth.
Was this our first one? I think it was. No, the card game.
The first Lord of the Rings game we got was either the card game, the Lord of the Rings LCG from Fantasy Flight, or the little Lord of the Rings dice game. Lord of the Rings Journey to Mordor, also by Fantasy Flight. I think almost all of our Lord of the Rings games are from Fantasy Flight, come to think of it.
So we're not sure which was the first one, but we just wanted
We
to...
definitely got the card game before this.
Oh,
That's
yeah,
for
that I remember.
Yeah.
I remember playing the card game. And I remember having to stop playing the card game because it was getting a little intense.
All the spiders.
Yeah, no, it was no. Prefer to have a peaceful sleep.
It's not a world or a trilogy or a storyline that is very conducive to arachnophobes.
or those of more faint-hearted folk. Yeah. Well, so I think we should leave it at that because let's move on in episode 2 and talk about this particular game.
Okay.
Okay. And then...
Yeah, we'll go a bit more in-depth in the next episode about Journeys of Middle-earth and how it plays and what it is and all those things.
And then we'll share the next one and the next one. And so basically we're going to this Collector's Corner is sharing with you our collection and talking about the games. And
one game at a time and chatting about it.
So, for the next few podcasts, this is episode 1 of the series, and I'm sure there's going to be an episode 2 and 3 and 4 and maybe more of Lord of the Rings collection, because there's a lot of them. I keep looking over here because off camera
there's a pile of boxes
there's a pile of Lord of the Rings games. So, but you can see these books here, and the minis you can see. And so that is it for I keep saying you can see. I have to keep reminding myself that some people are just listening.
Can't see because you're just listening.
Yes, but you said they can go see if they want to.
Yeah.
Because of that board game show. What have you done on that board game show recently? What's gone up?
Recently, as of recording this, we've just put up a playthrough for Flatline, our 2-player.
Oh, you and I are playing
playthrough
Flatline.
of Flatline.
That's fun.
Next week, following this, I've got the second installment of Simon Reed playing through the Star Realms solo
That's
campaign.
a series as well.
Yeah, so that's got a few more episodes in the pipeline coming at some point in the future. So he did part 1 way back in 2019, I think.
Yeah, and there was
and
a
then,
long
and then a
pause.
little thing called the COVID pandemic
Yes.
kind of interrupted the flow of life.
Because
So-
Simon, who comes to do this, lives a distance away, a couple
Yeah.
of hours drive. So he couldn't come. And so that was the end of
that
our
was the
little...
end of that little series that we
But now it's
we just started,
reignited.
but now we've got the ball rolling on that again. So next week is episode 2 of Simon Reed playing through the Star Realms campaign. And then, yeah, watch this space. More to come in the future. There will be more Star Realms videos. A couple more Simon videos. I'm just recently recorded a video for Wormholes, the little
Space
abstract space game from AEG. So that'll be coming to the channel in the
Future.
distant future.
It's in the pipeline. Not in the pipeline, it's in the queue. It's
Yeah.
in the queue.
Yeah, it hasn't quite made it to the pipeline yet.
Yeah. Well, you recorded it, so it's
Yeah.
been filmed. So now it has to wait in line for
in the
its
can.
editing. Yeah. But
that
I'm
is
hoping
coming.
if you can take from this podcast series, if you can take from it that it is fun to be a collector. So carry on and collect. We're not alone, I'm sure. We're not alone. And we...
Especially not for the people likely to be watching this video.
Do you think they're all
I
collectors?
think that a goodly portion of them are collectors.
They collect board games. They might not collect series. Like we've got all these Lord of the Rings games. But when you come to think of it, board games don't necessarily run in series.
No,
a
very
lot of the
seldom.
ones that we've got, they're standalone ones.
Most board games are standalone things, and even the ones the Lord of the Rings games we have aren't in series.
No, they're just a lot of
They're
Lord
just
of
a
the
lot
Rings
of Lord of the Rings themed games, you know.
Yeah.
So, and they all tackle that IP in different ways. Like Journeys of Middle Earth doesn't really follow the Lord of the Rings narrative. It's just set in Middle Earth, hence being called Journeys in Middle Earth. So it's
But you know what are cool?
unique stories within that world versus a different board game that we have that literally traces the narrative of the book.
Yes.
You know,
We've got another one like it. But you know what I also think of as a collection as such is when you collect a whole lot of board games that are of a similar theme. And we love space-themed board games. So
Yeah,
they're
so that's like
all
a-
standalone, separate, but they're all themed around space.
yeah.
So I call that a collection. We collect board
We're
games.
board game collectors. All board games are part of the board game collection.
Yeah. So in the next episode, we will go
We will
into
dive deeper into
tell you more about this game of ours, Lord of the Rings:
Journeys
Journeys
in Middle Earth.
So that is it then for this episode 1, and I look forward to sharing with you in the next one. I'm off to make tea. Bye.
And I'll say thank you ever so much for watching, and I hope you enjoyed the show. And remember to spread the joy of tabletop gaming.